It's 15:07 hours. My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. Today is January 18th, 2022, and today is Tuesday. Miss, what is your name?
My name is Paula Edwards.
Okay, Miss Edwards. And by the way, what rank were you when you separated from the military?
I retired as a full colonel.
What branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Army.
Why did you choose the Army?
They had Army ROTC at the college that I attended. And they looked like they were having a great time. It looked like a big adventure. I used to love the commercial Be All You Could Be. And I'm like, I could be all I can be. So
Okay.
let me check them out.
What were you doing prior to going into the service?
I was in high school. So I
Where-
went
but-
in after graduating from high school.
Where was that?
I went to high school in Chicago. I attended Luther High School South and graduated in 1982.
Okay. Did you have any college prior to going into the service?
It was kind of simultaneously. So
Uh-huh.
I had joined ROTC and I was able to join the simultaneous membership program where you would belong to a reserve unit and you were also in college, but you were getting that experience at the same time.
Okay. Where did you go in? Where was basic training?
I went to basic at Fort Knox, Kentucky. It was basic for ROTC though.
And that was a special program?
Yes, so if you did not have, if you had not gone to regular basic training, then you could go to basic through ROTC and it lasted for 6 weeks. Pretty close to, you're learning the same thing that they do at basic training, except they're all cadets, you're all in the same situation. You know, between semesters over the summers when you did that.
Okay. After basic training, what was your MOS and where did you go for your MOS?
Well, after basic, I was still in ROTC, so you weren't going to your school. I had to wait until I graduated from college before going on to my officer basic course. But in between, you would go to an advanced course after your basic course with ROTC, and that was at Fort Lewis, Washington, which I got the real exposure to the Northwest. I had never been in the Northwest before to see all the really tall trees and the cool air, even though it was summer. But that was a really good experience. You got to put all of the advanced knowledge that you were getting in ROTC to the test to see, and that was one of the last big hurdles you had to cross to see if you really would get a commission, or they would just say thank you for your service and not let you continue on. So it was like that make or break type, all those challenges and going through all that type of rigorous training. And you know, they were looking at your leadership, if you had that or you didn't, you know, if you might be better served at being enlisted and not being an officer. So that was a really good time. And then I graduated from college in 1986 and I went on to my officer basic course, but I had a few hiccups along the way. I had branched military intelligence, but they didn't start my top secret clearance. So if you don't have a top secret clearance by 6 weeks, you can't stay for the rest of it because it's top secret, and I didn't have it. And so they told you about other branches that you could transfer to. They really didn't encourage us to stay and wait for the clearance because it takes a long time. And I remember the ROTC advisor who was there. He was there from the reserves, not ROTC. He was the reserve advisor. He said, does anybody know their congressman personally? And I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, you know, this is terrible. They keep sending people here and they're not able to finish the course, so it's not really fair. But when they told me that they had an Adjutant General's Corps available, that's what I really wanted anyway, so I'm like, okay, I'm out. I'm gonna go on and do what I want. So I was there in Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indianapolis, Indiana. That's where I went to my officer basic course. But at this point now, it's 1987 by the time I'm there.
Okay, so what year did you go in the service?
Well, I actually enlisted in 1983.
Okay, so this is 4 years later, and you were stationed.
Yes.
Okay, and how long was that? How long was this tour? Was this the first tour?
Yes, it was. I was there for a total of 6 months. That's how long I was there.
Okay, okay. So what was your job? Intelligence?
It started out that way. So I had those years before I actually went to my course and learning a lot of intelligence type information. And it seemed interesting, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do, because I never was one who cared about all the secret squirrel stuff. That wasn't my thing. And the Adjutant General's Corps really worked with people. They got your feel for people and helping people and moving on with their careers. That's really what the Adjutant General Corps does. And so we always get jokes about that, like, what are you going to do? Kill them with your pen or something like that, or your computer. Those are all jokes, but if you don't have the Adjutant General Corps, people don't go anywhere. You're not going to get paid. Your family is not going to be taken care of. So while we love the infantry, God bless the infantry, the field artillery, all those things that conventionally were there for the war, they can't get there without the Adjutant General Corps. So we keep everything going. We get the replacements in, all those good kind of things. That comes through the Adjutant General's Corps. Getting paid, getting insurance, having your family taken care of. And that was a big thing to learn the worth, because a lot of people often go, well, that's not the main job. But for every one infantryman, it takes about 10 or 15 other people to support that one person. So they don't operate by themselves. It's a whole, as you said, a pie. And we have our slice, they have their slice, and the rest of it all comes together to work for the good for the Army or for the service, and inevitably for the nation.
Okay. So help me out here. In 1987, you finished your tour where?
At Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana.
And where was the next tour?
The next thing after that time, I went in the reserves, and so I was doing, I had my command time there, and it was something because it came up close to this is now, transitioning back off of active duty, getting back in the reserves, finding a unit. It's now like 89 or so. And I went into a command for a chemical unit. But it was at a headquarters, and they're like, well, you know the Adjutant General stuff. You can keep the unit running smooth. And it was, I was the headquarters company for the 479th Chemical Battalion. And that was tough, and it was not doing the administrative part. That was great. I learned that. I could do that. I could lead that. But then we went on alert, and now that was tough, because also I was pregnant with my 4th child, and now you're the commander, and you go on alert. And how are you going to say, no, I'm not going to go? So that was like in the August time frame of 91. And my son was born in September of 91. And so, I had my mom saying that I should get out, my ex-husband, who was also military, saying I should get out to be home, and I was thinking, I don't think this is the time to get out. I'm leading soldiers. I took their money for the scholarship. I got all the training. Now that they asked me to actually do this job, this is like 5 years after I've been commissioned.
Okay.
You're asking me to do this job, and now I'm going to leave because I'm pregnant. Well, I had just made up in my mind that once those 8 weeks would go by, I would definitely join my unit. But as fate had it, that ended very quickly, and we didn't have to go anywhere. But it was pretty scary to know that, okay, now I have 3 other children and this 1 newborn, and you're going to have to go. And they were all young. They were all, it's about 5 and a half, and a 4, and a 2, and then a newborn. So that was pretty scary to have that young and to go. But I had determined that's what I was going to do. And after my family got used to what was going to happen, they were supportive. They were supportive of me. They didn't want me to go and be in harm's way. They wanted their kid's mom to stay there because, that was the biggest thing that had happened in our country that would actually take you away. I mean, other than that, it was Vietnam, so nothing. And I'm the youngest of 6 children, 5 girls and 1 boy. And my father had been in the Korean War, and he was like, I never imagined any of my children willingly wanting to go into the army, but if you're going to do it, you have to be the best you can be. So that's the path I took.
And I think as a parent, how do you equate the emotional toll that it took on you, and how did you deal with it internally?
It's a lot, because you go, am I doing the right thing? Am I putting myself before my children, before my spouse? Am I being selfish by saying, I'm gonna go? But the funny thing is, women are usually asked that question. How often do fathers go off to war and you're expected just to be a hero? You're not saying, well, how come you're not going to get out and stay home because you have children? There are different expectations for men and for women. And I was bent on, no. I told my ex-husband, I said, maybe you can get out and you can stay home so that they have somebody stable to be there with. Why would you ask me to do that? But that's not something you're willing to do. And so that took a real toll on my marriage, and how my family also saw me. They had to understand that this was service, and none of them had been in this type of service before at all. None of them, just me. So I was going against the grain. No one else. Like I said, my father was in service, but he was drafted, and he couldn't figure out why. Why would you want to do that? And I was telling him that he wanted to brainwash me. I'm like, nobody. It's just my service. I was a Girl Scout from 1st grade through 12th, and I earned at that time the highest award was a first-class Girl Scout. And I earned that. I understood what service was and all of that, but the only thing I didn't like about Girl Scouting was camping. So it was like, that's a lot of camping that they do. So you probably don't want to do it. And I said, well, I think it's important, and people who can should do it. And it's not just like, they used to have people going to the army when you can't do anything else, join the army. It's not technical, You can just peel potatoes, do simple stuff. But now, by the time I came through, that era was gone. Now they needed skilled people. They needed college graduates, because the military had changed. and I was glad to be a part of it. Or I had people ask me, was I a part of the wax? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, that was the Women's Army Corps. And I'm like, no. You know, I trained with men and women just the same. I remember vividly through my advanced course that I trained in ROTC, they used to have the radio that you'd have to carry. It was really heavy, or giving you the M60 machine gun, very heavy. And I think they did it to people who were smaller, because at the time I probably weighed only about 105 pounds, something like that. And I'm like, I'm gonna carry it because you can't break me. I'm gonna carry it, I can get through it. And I will, and I did. And I ended up coming out with one of the highest awards. I think it was the Gauntlet or something like that. It eludes me at the moment, but you had to score really high in every single thing, all the different benchmarks that they gave you. You had to score really high in all of them. And I did, because I thought about what my mother was just totally against it, but my father was like, you have to go and you have to do better than everybody else, so that you will stand out. If you say this is what you want to do, then you do it well and just do your best. And so that's what I did.
We're going to come back a little later and address this double standard.
Mm-hmm.
What was your next? Where was your next tour?
After that, after the I finally got into a personnel service company, so now I was able to use that Adjutant General's Corps, and that was in the Chicago area. And I was able to, in that company, it had over, I think, 200 people in the company, but maybe there were eight officers. And that was it. And that was a real time to grow and learn, because I was a captain, but I forgot to say, I got an early commission, so I was 20 years old. So I was
Where were you?
I was at University of Illinois in Chicago.
And what year was this?
That was 1985.
Okay.
And so I was still 20 years old, and that's earlier than most people, but like I said, my dad really put it in my head, you have got to be better than others, because he says, one, you're a female and most people really don't want you there. You're African American, so they think that you don't need to rise to the top. It's fine for you to be at the bottom doing all the grunt work, but no, you don't need to be in the higher areas. So, and he's like, you have to prove them wrong. And so that's how I started my proof, is doing better, being a distinguished military student, and all of that, because that was going to make a difference, and that was going to help me select where I was going to go. So I finally did get to that management, and that part just went along, and then I finally got to do the job that I really wanted to.
Which was?
That was to be a public affairs officer.
Oh, okay.
So now it's like 1996.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I started being able to do real deployments and going places, because the mission is far and it is wide. It is not just whatever is local. And I started out, we did a deployment to Fort Bliss, actually.
Texas?
Yes, for roving sands. And that was one mission that really got my feet wet, to see how the media comes in and how you could take them around, and how you had really large, like Peter Jennings and really Connie Chung, really famous reporters. You had a lot of not famous reporters too, but really big people coming to see these exercises that are being done, and having a lot of responsibility put on me. And around that same time, or maybe it was the next year, we did the Boy Scout Jamboree, and President Clinton was there. And so I was actually running this entire event, and I was maybe about 28 years old or so, like that. And normally if I had been in the civilian sector, I would have never been given that much responsibility. So my name at the time was Paula Jones, and that was right around when President Clinton had the whole scandal with Paula Jones. And so when Secret Service came through and they saw Captain Paula Jones up there, they're like, oh, we have to take this down. And they changed the signage just to say Captain P. Jones, so you know what it stood for. But that was really something to say that at 28 years old, I could handle a POTUS event, which is the President of the United States, to be able to handle something at that level with them coming through and getting the media to where they were making statements and all of that. It was just fabulous. And then that was just life-changing, really. And I knew that is what I really wanted to do. And I had opportunities to do, be a director, executive director, and producer for broadcast journalist, and then for a magazine. So we published a magazine quarterly, and then, well, some places we did it weekly, depending if we were deployed at that time, we were doing it weekly. And then also, you know, taking in congressional delegations, senatorial delegations, governors, and all that, which was just so interesting. And then through my favorite unit was the 318th Press Camp Headquarters, that's what it was called. And now I was there as a captain, and I got to go to DINFOS, which is the Defense Information School. And what's great about DINFOS is it's not just those in the Army who go, because a lot of times when you go to schools, it's all your own service, but we got the opportunity to train with all branches of service. So Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, we all come to the same place. Coast Guard, let me not leave them out, they're there too. And we all learn and train together, because when we deploy or you're doing these large training exercises, you deploy and it's people from all branches, because these exercises are often all branches. And so one that I really liked, and I think that was 98, 97, somewhere in there, we went to Egypt for Operation Bright Star, and that was just really phenomenal to be overseas and escorting media and having media on the battlefield to get them there, because a lot of people go, well, how? They never really take a thought to how does the media get out to what we see on TV. Or they have people like me who are planning escorts for all these different delegations, if it's media, or like I said, we have, I don't want to call them political, but our local leaders that come out and they want to see. And so that was really amazing to be able to see that. And I just remember one thing for being in Egypt is we could look at the moon and go, oh my God, that moon is the same moon that I see at home. And then to see the pyramids at night and the moon, that just stayed with me forever, because that was really a powerful piece. That was really powerful.
During your deployments to the Middle East, what was your experience regarding casualties?
That was tough, because public affairs people are the ones who get to share that news or speak for the commands. It's not often the commander. You'll see the public affairs officer out there making statements. And we did lose people while I was deployed, and I guess one of my only saving graces was that I did not know them personally. So it was easier to be able to speak to that piece, because I didn't know them personally. And then also, I was mobilized and deployed in stateside, and during the height of probably the global war on terrorism, I attended many funerals, so many that I don't even remember how many that I attended. Would be the person who would receive the body and have to be the one who would have the casket open and you say it's acceptable for the family to see. And like I said, I didn't know them personally, so I had empathy for them. I could do the job because, like I said, it wasn't personal. And I left one thing out because in between there, back to 2000, I did go to Bosnia and served over there for almost a year as well. And then the way how public affairs works, it's never a whole lot of people. So the entire unit may have had 33 people, I think it was 33, 36 people, but they send you out to different FOBs or different locations. It may be 3 or 4 people here, 3 or 4 people there, and so that you can have your reach, because as one person we cover an entire area of operation, which could be huge, and you can't. Our main job was to tell the Army story from the soldier or the serviceman's perspective, and so we had to go out for that, but you can't. It takes a lot of people moving separately, and so while in Bosnia, like I said, I was mainly stationed in Hungary, but our mission took us to Sarajevo. Oh my gosh. In the Greek Isles, you just went so many places. It's just, it was very interesting to see, and I'd be surprised sometimes how many people could be waving at you, and you're coming down the street in a Humvee or something, or some sort of military vehicle, whereas we don't see that in the U.S. unless it's a parade. Other than that, that's not something we see coming down the street, but for them that was security that we were there and we were able to help. It was almost time for me to go home. It was like in the last week, and I was in a vehicle that was in an accident. It was in a rollover accident, and the area over there in Croatia, Sarajevo, all of that is hilly, and their roads are not the same as ours, how we have these nice guardrails out there and curves, and our roads are a little wider, so you don't have to feel like you have to hug this mountain to make it. And our vehicle went over and flipped upside down. Well, the problem in Bosnia was a lot of unexploded ordnance, so when it was time to get out, it's like you don't know if you were in, we were upside down, and you don't know if you were able to, when you got out, it was going to be an explosion. So none of us, we all had on seatbelts. Nobody was injured, and so the person who drove the vehicle off the road didn't have any casualties. It looked really bad. People were like, "Where are the people in there?" And it's like, "Oh, we're standing here." But the person who ran off the road, that non-commissioned officer, he was the one who had to get out and go and mark the way for us to go, because he put us in that situation. And it could have been dangerous, but thank God it wasn't, and we were able to get help, and someone came to get us so that we could continue on to Sarajevo, where we were going for our mission. But that one stands out in my mind for going on. So I jumped back, because that was like 2000 to 2001, which is also kind of interesting for being there in 2000, because they kept saying all the computers and everything was going to shut down, and it was Y2K, everything was Y2K. And the time of the day it came and it went, the whole year it came and it went, and things just kept going on. It just was, now it was 2001. But that was very interesting. And then in 2003 is when I was mobilized and deployed again. And this time the mission was to train people to deploy. So we did a lot of media on the battlefield, and I did that for almost 4 years, getting soldiers ready to go out and deploy, to go over to the Middle East. And then I finally went in 2008 to 9. I was between Iraq and Kuwait, and that was still then doing the public affairs mission. And at that point, I was the director for 3rd Army's public affairs office, or directorate. And so I got a lot of really good experience. And there were only 2 other, the directorate had 20 people in it, and only 2 of us were reserve soldiers, but often I received the comment that, oh, we can't tell that you're in the reserves, so they thought that was maybe my civilian job as well. And I'm like, no, I'm a middle school science teacher. But I know my job. I know my military job. We had the exact same training. I know it. And so I was able to do that and still lead soldiers. And like I said, we work in a joint environment. So I had Marines and Navy personnel, Air Force personnel, because they don't stay as long. They stay like 3 months or 4 months, and then you get another set of people who would come in. And you have to learn how to do their evaluations, but it was great. I worked directly for a 2-star general, and then the 3-star general was, over everything, but I was in his meeting every day, advising him on what we saw as public affairs, and doing briefings at that high level as well. But you get the information, you train for it, and you send our people out to cover those stories and get the data. And that was when I really got to do a little more work, like through open source reporting. So that's not looking at anything that intelligence people would do. That's just when I got more familiar with blogs. Like today, we're more familiar with a lot of blogs having more credibility and social media having more credibility. But in 2007 or so to 8, 9, it wasn't that way. It was still pretty new. A lot of people didn't have it. But I learned quickly that those were reliable sources. I could see where things were happening in Pakistan, or something's coming over the border that we need to let them be aware of it. And the 3-star general was like, how does the public affairs person know more than my intelligence G2 people? So that quickly told me whatever I was seeing, I needed to tell them as well. But I'm just looking at something anybody can look at. It taught me about using the news. So if we could read it in English, that usually meant that it was a Western back paper, like you might see New York Times, Washington. You might see that in the corner. So I already knew that was kind of a biased way, but we had access to translators. And I'm like, I need you to look at the things that are in languages I can't read or understand. Then you tell me what people are saying, what's really happening. And then that's how we were able to glean a lot of information that kept our supply chain safe, and helped us keep getting through and continuing the mission. Because that was also when the surge had happened. I was deployed during the surge, and so we had lots of people on ground, lots of equipment, lots of supplies that had to move and to keep those things safe. It was really important, because you didn't know where danger could be, on the roads, getting things back and forth with IEDs and things of that nature.
Okay, I have a couple of burning questions,
Sure.
but before I move to that, what I'd like to do is try to wrap up the chronology
Okay.
of your military history.
Mm-hmm.
So have we gotten to the point where you're done with your tours?
No, they continue on. So, but after that, they're all at this point stateside, and I stay on active duty. So
Where were they?
I was in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which was close to Chicago. Camp Shelby, Indiana. Camp Shelby, Mississippi. Camp Atterbury, Indiana. Fort Dix, New Jersey. Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. So those were all places that I was, but it was all doing the mission. We fell under First Army, and their mission was to get people ready to deploy. So I traveled a lot, and then my last assignment, I was at, I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky.
There you go.
I went there, and I got to serve at the Human Resource of Excellence. So everything for all Army, active component, the reserves, the National Guard, all coming through there, and to see how that process worked. And I did training for colonels and assignments to help them to get to where they should be, and did a lot on leadership and things of that nature. From there, then my final assignment was at the 87th Army Reserve Center, something like that. It's amazing how quickly you can forget the exact names of the units, but I was the Assistant Chief of Staff G1, and so I was back to my basic roots of doing personnel, and we did coverage for soldiers in 24 different states and Puerto Rico, and there was about 5,000 soldiers that fell under there, that managing their careers, their promotions, suicide prevention, all the different trainings that you have to have. We managed all of that, and like I said, their careers from promotions to separations, retirements, good stuff, not so good stuff. We had a hand in all of that for all those soldiers.
Did you have another career after the military?
Yeah, after I retired, I went to work for Capital Communications. It was a consulting firm, and it was doing public affairs. It was doing the same job. I did a lot of strategic communicating, writing plans and things of that nature. And I stayed there for about a year and a half. And it wasn't, being a contractor wasn't as exciting for me as being actual military, because you were so limited if you were not a government employee or you were not a military employee. And I had spent 32 years being military, and then to be told, well, you can write up these plans, but you don't get to execute them. Somebody else is going to execute them, but you go ahead and you write it up. And I'm like, so now I just get to do some consulting work as needed. I go back and I help them with that, and I can write plans and all that kind of good stuff, talking points and whatever's needed. But strictly on a consulting basis now.
What is your participation with the Buffalo Soldiers?
Oh, that's great. I started with the Buffalo Soldiers as an associate member. I didn't know how to ride a motorcycle. My husband was a part of them, but I liked history. And so I learned a lot about Cathay Williams, who was the first female, African-American female to serve in the Army. And by nature, she belonged to the Buffalo Soldiers, and she portrayed herself as a man. Instead of, her name was Cathay Williams, but then she portrayed herself as William Cathay and served for 2 years. And so I like that history portion of it, and I really like that they do service. And so their main pillars are that they ride, they do service, and they educate the public. Because a lot of times when people see our vests, they see Buffalo Soldiers and they think that you're from Buffalo, New York. And it's like, no, you have to explain what the Buffalo Soldiers, or who they were, and their whole history. So I get to do that piece as well. And then in 2020, I became a full patch member. I had learned to ride a motorcycle, and I went through the whole process of becoming a full member. And like I said, one thing with doing that Cathay Williams, I do a monologue of her life, and I call it a living legacy. So I wear the Civil War era type uniform, and I start out as I'm a slave, because that's what she was, a slave, and kind of have a head wrap on and things of that nature. And I just tell her story, and I end it with my story, thanking her for paving the way for people like me to go on and be troops overseas and abroad and at home, men and women. That part didn't matter. It was my service and what I could do. And being from Chicago, how many people thought that's something that I could do? Probably not a lot, but it was something that I did accomplish. And I'm still grateful for her for providing that way, making a way.
I'm going to switch gears because you made some very powerful points. And the wrap up on this is, it has to do directly with, number one, you being a female, being a woman. Number two, I believe that your opinion and your thinking is very valid, especially in today's world. I mean, what I mean to say is the progression up to now, as far as the role of the female in the world overall. But to be more specific, number one, you're apparently, and it needs to be heard, but since you've had the experience of the double standard, not so much how you feel about it, what you think the solution is for the double standard, because I believe as a parent how you feel about it, and I'll just say this for you, you don't approve it, in my opinion is rightfully so. What would be the solution, or what are some of the solutions that we need to see in order to solve that dilemma that we're in, whereas women are not in places of power where we really need them to be?
It's to not shrink. I use that term often. Do not shrink when someone is asking someone else to do a job that you can do. You inform them that you're capable of doing that job as well. And when you get in it, that you do it, and you do it very well. And it's also about getting opportunities. Sometimes people think, well, oh, she's a woman, maybe she can't handle that weight, or this is something too much, or she'll be too skittish and too emotional to carry out this job. Well, give her that opportunity, because there are a lot of men who are squeamish about doing different things as well, and they're not the right person. They're way too emotional. And you can't say because of your gender, this is what you're going to do, or this is what you're going to be. Nobody knows that. But if you give them an opportunity to show what they can do, most people will be really amazed at what a person can do if just given the opportunity and a chance. So how do you correct that? You give the same opportunities. You don't go to your one friend and say, well, I know Jim can do this, but you didn't talk to Karen and Leslie. You didn't even talk to them to see if it's something that they wanted to apply for. But give it the same rubric weighted all the same and let gender not have a say in it, because so much has changed, so many opportunities have opened, and if it's something you could do, like now women can be in the infantry, I think it's still extremely small because, well, many people, the infantry is still a small part. It's a very important part, but it's a small part of the Army, and there's so many other jobs that you might like more. Like, I love the job that I did, and I wouldn't want to trade that for another job. That's the one that I like, that's what I picked, that's what I did, that's what I excelled in. And so if you let people do the jobs that they want to do and they can excel at it, then that's what you do.
Okay. I PTSD. Unless I missed my mark, you've had a lot of experience with PTSD, from being treated unfairly as a woman to things that you've experienced in war zones, and well, just personally dealing with the things that I've had to deal with in social services in mental health situations. For instance, I just witnessed where in New York City they're starting to employ mental health professionals to go along with police. And there's been a lot of discussion about this in the last couple of years. What do you see as solutions for PTSD, and as a mother and also as a decorated colonel in the military who's had the experience of being in the war zone, if you could try to sum up what, again, the word solutions come to mind. What do you see as far as some of these solutions?
The biggest solution to me is to recognize that it really exists. To not tell people, just forget it and keep going. Just forget it and keep going. Because that's why I really think one big problem we have with our suicide rate amongst the military. It's really high because people try their best to hide it all, to bury it, and just keep marching, just keep going. But you can't. But if you don't normalize it and make it acceptable, that just say it's a problem. This is what you saw. Get help out there, not making it so detrimental to say, I have help. And sometimes we can't always keep doing the job. I had, as a battalion commander when we were going to deploy for Iraq, some soldiers that had been deployed before, because now it's 2007, 2008 time frame, and they had gone in 2003. And one was a medic, and he just said, I can't go back, I can't do it. And he was now in an administrative type position, doing administrative type work. So he'd be in a more office, he wouldn't be out in the field, he wouldn't more than likely see the same type of, no way, being a medic for an infantry unit, that's a real big difference. But I also recognize that he didn't need to go back, because there were other people who would volunteer and go, and he needed to get help right where he was. And so he didn't go with the unit. He got the help that he needed to heal, and was able to keep going. So it's recognizing when people have a problem and not giving them the expectations that they have to just get over it and bury it, because you can't bury it.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Has your military experience influenced your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Well, for experience, that's what people expect. If you're in the military, that you would see war. And so for the first half of the career, there wasn't a war. There was just all peacetime stuff, and people enjoying their benefits of getting education, using their VA loan, things of that nature. It was all the good stuff, getting discounts, at getting praises, but we weren't asked to actually do anything besides training. We train, but we weren't really asked to do anything. And so I think that's what the general expectation is for the military, is that there will be war, and you need to be trained and prepared and ready to stop that, to stop the aggression as soon as you can.
Okay. Last question. And how has your military experience affected your life?
Oh, it affected it greatly because, as I talked about earlier, I did things differently than my family. No one else decided to take that path, and I've always been one who can see a path that I want to take, and not being disrespectful to anyone else. I can see the path, and I can go down that road. So this was something that was so different that I was doing that changed. Like, I used to do a lot of modeling, very girly things, and I still liked things like cars, fast cars, motorcycles, enjoyed weightlifting and body lifting, but on the same hand, I love a great fashion show, so I had all these different sides of myself, and the military let me bring out a lot of discipline. I wasn't a very impulsive person, but I became very disciplined in my thought pattern to get things done and not procrastinate, see what something was that I wanted to do, and then just keep moving.
Is there anything that anything you feel like you've left out, or anything else you'd like to share?
And another thing that I didn't get to share was the different awards that I received.
Thank you.
One that I'm most proud of, and most people don't ever get it, is the MOVSM, which is the Military Outstanding Service Medal. And I got 2 of those because my entire life has always been about service. Always, from being in kindergarten through college, I've always volunteered. Today, I probably volunteer with almost 10 organizations. So that's how I fill my time since I stopped working. I did get the Legion of Merit. I got Meritorious Service Medals, Army Achievement Medals, Army Accommodation Medals, NATO medals. I had lots of medals. I have a lot of medals and awards. But the one that I'm most proud of is that Volunteer Service Medal, because that speaks to who I am, what I do, and I do that regardless of where I was in life, or where I am, or what I ever will do. So regardless if I'm being paid for something, I am always going to give my service. If it was not in the military, it is beyond the military, and I'm just going to continue down that path.
I'd like to thank you for a wonderful interview, and I'd like to thank you for your continued service.
Thank you so much.